Hey there, Cranial Pride listeners. Thanks for joining me on this episode. So today I'm solo, and as I'm recording this, it's some interesting times, and certainly my personal life here. I'm watching my older son, who's been prepping for a transition to have a driver's license. It's quite amazing. There's a lot of obviously testing that needs to be done, practice, and obviously as parents, we get all nervous. We're worried about our kids and their safety, right? That's what we do, right? As parents, that we're always worried about their safety and ensuring that they get the right education and they're prepared for, challenges in life like this, like getting a license, which is a big deal. And, we've encountered a lot of learning around all the rules around it. Obviously, passing tests is one thing, but then all the rules around curfews and, when he can drive with others and time frames. So there's a lot of rules and things put in place to help safeguard his safety and the safety of others, right? Because this could be dangerous for others too, for people who are not adequately prepared to drive. So I get it, and it makes a lot of sense. And, as I kind of take it to the analogy of a car in general, the seat belts and the bumpers and all the things that provide some safety and reduce risk is key. And that clearly equates to what our financial lives look like. It's interesting, all the amount of prep and sort of oversight that goes along with preparing kids to drive a car. But there's limited sort of education and push to kind of get people financially educated for life. And interestingly enough, is there's a lot of opposite sort of approaches that we share with our kids that relate to finances that may differ. So, so today I wanted to cover just some general topics around how do we safeguard and protect our wealth through the course of life, as we're accumulating wealth throughout life. And then certainly as we get towards the later stages of our lives, when we typically maybe think about retirement or distributing our assets so that we can enjoy them more. And so I'll talk a little bit about those sorts of things and how we can maybe help safeguard our wealth, give us more options, and reduce some of the impact of some maybe negative things to our wealth. So let's start on the accumulation side. And I'm thinking about youth and certainly younger as we're building our wealth. There are a number of things. Obviously, it starts with education. And education is, unfortunately, within our school system, it's just not built in all that much. You see a little bit. And frankly, some of the things I've seen are just centered around investing and the stock market. That's what is the core of what people our children being taught around personal finances, which certainly is one piece to the puzzle, but there's so much more to investing and personal finances than the stock market. And so a lot of this is centered on building a good foundation of learning about, this is where I fall back to the hierarchy of wealth to say, what do we need first and foremost in our financial lives is kind of the basics, right? Protecting ourselves, our longevity, our ability to produce, savings. And so these are the core elements of building a strong financial foundation that can grow from there. Unfortunately, what most people are taught is let's take as much risk as humanly possible because you have so much time in your life that, if things fall apart, whether you mismanage debt or, you lose a bunch of money in the market, it's okay because you have so much time. To me, it's promoting risk, and risk that for people that are not actually prepared for it or understand it. To me, it's gambling. And so this is where we start with helping people understand like what are the basics around building good money habits, like saving on a consistent basis. And there's arguments of where to save, but at least save somewhere and obviously protect your number one asset, which is you, right? As a young person building up wealth, whether through job or business, like how do we sustain that in case something happens to us, like whether through our health or what if we died and our family's exposed. So getting those core elements in place to protect us from things that we can't control that could really thwart our wealth building ability. Those are the core elements where you start. And that's a foundational piece that certainly we teach at your Perennial Pride, but really hard for people because we don't know what will happen. And we unfortunately hear these things on a daily basis of things that you can't even fathom will happen to people at younger ages, whether it's a disability or death or just some hardship that you just don't expect. So having that in place to protect is so key because we got a lot of years to produce and earn and create wealth. Now, outside of the foundational pieces of protection and savings and certainly building on financial education, hopefully there's a portion of it that people continue to learn and stay educated throughout life. Because just like from an education perspective, we hopefully that's a lifelong thing. And that goes with our financial lives too. We're going to evolve. There's going to be other priorities in our lives, and it requires people to continue to learn and not just learn a portion of it and then hopefully it's kind of just sets it in place. Well, it's going to require continual learning with the right sort of mentors in place and coaches. And as it relates to our financial lives, this is where we're often taught to accumulate wealth, and we do have to grow our wealth. But one of the things I often try to help instill to others is thinking about how do we create multiple streams of income. You hear this often enough where, the wealthiest people in this world have so many numbers of streams of income because we know things will change, right? Maybe you lose a job or, something happens to your business, whatever the scenario is. How do we ensure that we have other sources of income to live our lives? Because if we just accumulate wealth and put it aside to be used 30, 40 years down the line, we don't know when we're going to need that. And so having access to other funds and other sources of income is so key. And that's where, whether it's investing in a business or investing in real estate, whatever the case is, but exploring the idea of generating income in lieu of your business or your job is a huge factor to help protect and shield against the unexpected, because then you can fall back on those things if needed, and you don't need that time. It's just building more cash available for you to use to invest in other things and other assets. So really important concept that certainly when I was growing up, I never learned about any of that, to build the level of income that could, say, replace my job or other sources of income so that, I have options when things change. And so those are some of the key elements as you're kind of accumulating wealth. How do we shield against some of the turmoil that comes our way? And that's through protection, education, and certainly multiple streams of income. Now, as we shift gears towards the later stages in life, when we maybe have done well, we've built up assets and income, and now we're looking to maybe downshift in our jobs. Maybe we take a part-time job or change careers, or some people officially retire and no longer work anymore. How do we maximize the use of our assets to enjoy our lives in the way we want and build the legacy we want for our families, for causes we care about? And so one of the things that I think is really important is to think about taxes. Taxes are our number one expense we all face in life, all through accumulating wealth, as well as when we're distributing it during retirement. Taxes are here to stay. They're not going anywhere. And you ask anybody, especially CPAs, what direction we're going, and it's only going up. And most assume they're going to be in a lower tax bracket in retirement, but there's no guarantee of that. And a lot of people's wealth are tied up in accounts like a 401k or IRA, where those are going to be subject to taxation down the road when you want to use them. And it's going to stop people from wanting to use them as much because of the taxation. So this is where planning ahead of time as you move towards the distribution phase of life is to start shifting assets to tax-free accounts like a Roth IRA or a cash value life insurance or other vehicles that can really provide some tax-free income and sources. It's really going to balance off if things shift, because who knows if taxes do rise dramatically, you're going to And the main source of income are going to be subject to taxation. It's going to make it a little bit trickier to maximize your use of your dollars, and you're not going to want to touch them. And so it's really important to start thinking about that before time, because some of these things take some planning to get ahead of, to make the efficient transfer of money to tax-free areas so that you can benefit them down the road. So really thinking about that going forward is going to be really key to give you more options as the tax world changes, which we know it will. Now, for a lot of folks who have a ton of their assets in the stock market and have done a really good job of saving in, say, their 401k IRAs, like we said, they're going to be subject to taxation, but what they're also going to be subject to is volatility. And anyone who knows this now and the time recording this, there's some significant sort of volatility in the markets. And unfortunately, given the way things work these days and the influence of our friends at the Fed and the boom and bust cycles we've now grown accustomed to, we're going to see more of that. There's nothing that says that that's going to change. So we're going to deal with a lot of volatility, and hopefully over long stretches of time, they'll still go up, but you're going to have to deal with volatility. And this is why it's so key. There's this concept of a volatility buffer. So at the time that, when we're dealing with a lot of downturn in the market and people are getting most of their dollars from accounts that are subject to this volatility, if they have to take money from those accounts, it's going to cause those accounts to not only take a loss, but also come down in value. So it worsens the problem. And, either you can stop taking money and live a meager life during those lean years, or prepare for it by having assets that are uncorrelated to those market-based assets, whether it's sitting in cash or cash value life insurance, or having other options like a home equity line of credit. There's different options, but having something that is a volatility buffer that you can use as a source of income while your market-based assets can regrow and recoup is really key. And this is, again, preparing for that inevitability that things are going to get a little rocky on occasion, and then be comfortable and confident to know that you prepared adequately for it so that you'll be okay and still kind of live the life that you want to as you're living out your retirement years. So it's really important to start thinking about that and having things in place that you can use when needed, because they're going to be really handy, especially during some of the rough times. And then, you let your market-based assets continue to grow or regroup over the time. And unfortunately, we will deal with RMDs, or required minimum distributions, which cause a wrinkle to this. That's why, again, the former sort of suggestion around getting some money in, say, Roth or other things like cash value life insurance that are you have access to when you want without a requirement, is really gives people flexibility and, a means to maximize every dollar that they own. And lastly, the one thing that I think helps to provide some buffering and sort of protection in retirement is getting some guaranteed sources of income. We think about things like Social Security, which, some people argue it's either going to be reduced or not there. I think it will be there. But for folks where, to have some sort of balancing to sort of market-based assets or things that are volatile, could be volatile, like real estate income, that you can have a guaranteed source of income through Social Security or even annuity that, you're deferring and pushing some of the risk to someone else to ensure that you get an income, and it sets a floor, right? So those basic needs in life, you can supply them with income that doesn't go down, and you can even set some up to take advantage of inflation and or market increases, and you can continue to have them grow, and that could be a good base of the income that you get to enjoy each year without a chance of it going away. And then you can allow your other assets to kind of have some volatility to it, but you can feel rest assured that you don't have to touch them because you have a good source of income that's coming in that is going to be putting another company at risk, like a life insurance company or the government at risk to be able to fund it every year. And you don't have to create that income. It's going to be coming to you. So thinking about that sort of combination of having some tax-free sort of source of income for sure, having assets that could be sort of undiversified to any market-based investments so that you can rely on them that they won't lose and you can access to them. And then thinking about at least for a portion of your income, having something that's absolutely guaranteed to come to you. And so it can set a good floor for you to balance off when things get a little rocky. So those are just some of the key ways that I think people should think about as they sort of prepare for volatility. And unfortunately, what we live in today is probably a sign of the future, and we're going to have to live with it. So the idea is to get ahead of it, think through it, put in place the strategies and approaches and tools to give you the biggest bang for your buck and more options to kind of deal with the volatility, so you don't get stressed out and you can still live the life you want. And I think this is the key is to build in those options. They require a little bit of planning and putting in place these things. And certainly, if we're happy to chat through them with you, if you want to talk through any of these options to see how they might help you in your situation, and whether you're accumulating assets or you're kind of closer to the distribution end of your life where you're trying to, create the maximum income of it. So hope this was helpful, and stay tuned for more sort of tips like this, and hopefully it was helpful, and we'll see you in the next episode of the Perennial Pride Podcast. Thanks for joining me on this episode today. I really am grateful for you as listeners to the Perennial Pride Podcast. I hope you're getting some tremendous value out of it and hopefully pushing you along your journey to financial freedom. I put this podcast together really to help you get more educated around your finances so that you feel empowered to live the life that you really want. And if you like the content that you heard today or watched, then I would encourage you to go to my website, perennialpride.com. There's tons of other content there. And you can access my book, Wealth Beyond the Numbers. You can buy it there on my website. It's a aggregation of a lot of great tips and tools I've learned to not only build my wealth in my accounts, but build wealth in my life and abundance and joy, and something that has a lot of my experiences in the journey that I've been on personally. Hopefully that can be also of value to you as you sort of move forward. So thanks again for being a Perennial Pride listener, and we'll see you on the next episode.